Hi, if anybody's watching this on our YouTube channel, everybody's grabbing their food and getting settled down, so it'll just be just a few minutes. I'm just going to get this situated in the right spot so y'all will be able to see us.
Isn't somebody sitting next to you?
Sister Pierce, but I don't even know what's sitting next to her.
Okay.
Right there. That's my sister Pierce.
No, it's probably chicken. They do chicken. They don't know. Yeah.
No roast beef.
That's why.
Extra pants.
I signed in on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I have issues the whole time with the non-standing up bottom.
Hi, welcome.
Hi. Good morning.
Morning. Right here. Whoa. There we go.
Yeah, Italian dressing. Yeah.
Not gonna leave that, not gonna put that.
I just say what. Okay, this is what we already. What you got?
Right in here, yep. And you can go ahead and grab some food in here. Or if you want to grab a seat first, that's fine too. Okay, Ms. Lisa, I think I'm gonna go ahead and just get started.
Okay.
With some introductory stuff. Sure. Yeah, I had some trouble figuring out where to right place the pointer camera, but no great option, but they should be able to hear you, so. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to use this crazy microphone because I have a ghost voice. No one can ever hear me. So I gotta get a little amplification, but Alicia, you should be okay, right?
I never have that problem.
Okay, well, just a little introduction. I'm Kat Romero. I'm the Director of Operations at OCC. This building here is the Disciples Center, and there's 4 organizations that are housed here, one of which is OCC. And we love this beautiful setting here with this really nice, like there's deer back here and a creek. But we'll be moving, I guess, at the end of the year. I'm kind of sad to leave. But Alicia Pickett is our Strength and Families Manager. You all probably know her better than you know me. Yeah, thank you. We love her. And we'll just kind of be tag teaming today. Today serves kind of 2 functions. We wanted to do an orientation because when you go through training, how many of y'all have been through training? Okay. So when you go through training with Larry, most of you probably had Larry. It's really focused on the curriculum and the actual content of what you're presenting in the program. That when you leave, you don't really get a really great overview of how to pull the whole program together and what's all involved in that. And kind of, you don't really know what it looks like until you're actually doing it on the first day, which isn't the best way to start a program. So we kind of wanted to just have something that kind of gave an overview of the whole program from start to finish, how OCC is involved, what your church or your host site's involvement is. And then the second part is to kind of bring together some people who have already done the program or are currently doing the program to share ideas and get some feedback from each other about, what worked, what didn't work, because we're still pretty new with this program. We've completed 3 cycles so far, have currently 3 going. So we're still kind of in the new phases where we're wanting to really improve the program, build it up better, and a lot of that will be feedback from y'all as we're kind of trying to figure out what works best and what doesn't work and what can be tweaked. So I'll just start a little bit with just we'll go through just a quick PowerPoint just to kind of orient you to what this program is, how it got started, and then how OCC partners with other organizations to put on the program. So first of all, this whole partnership started between us and the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. So they really wanted to reach out to the faith community because faith communities are where community work is happening. And they really wanted to we're under prevention. So rather than having a program like Strengthening Families happening with in the child welfare system, with parents being reunited with kids, that kind of stuff, where it's very effective, they want to get ahead of it and really build tools and skills into families before they ever get to any kind of system involvement. So they do this program like in jails and drug courts, child welfare system here in Oklahoma and nationally. But they really wanted with us to really target families before they ever get there. And hopefully they'll give them those skills and those tools so that they won't ever end up there at any point. So that's kind of our goal. We are obviously, as the Oklahoma Conference of Churches, focusing primarily on faith communities, but we also are doing Strengthening Families and other community organizations as well that are sort of targeting those families that we're really looking at. And if you all are doing the program currently or looking to do the program, there are no requirements for families to do the program. Any family can benefit from Strengthening Families. But I think probably either amongst yourselves or with Alicia, y'all are kind of identifying some of those families that you know could use a little bit of help, either with communication, discipline. They might be a little bit in crisis, somewhat at risk. And those are the families that we really like to target so that we can prevent them from going into any other kind of system. Hey, Charles Etta. Okay. So that's our initial beginnings of this program. Oh, you are in control of it. So Strengthening Families, if you're not familiar with the background of it, started in the 1980s. And it's been done in a million different settings. If you did training with Larry or Jeannie, they have done Strengthening Families all over the country. It's done internationally as well. And over now, they've got decades and decades of research that shows how effective this program is in reducing negative outcomes like teen pregnancy, substance use in kids, involvement in child welfare system, court systems, school attendance. But then it also improves a lot of the really positive outcomes that we want to see for families. So increased bonding, decreased maltreatment, all these, like just list after list after list. If you're curious about it, just Google it and you'll find all the different ways they've found positive outcomes out of Strengthening Families. So that's why the department really wants to invest in this program, because they know that it works. And for those of y'all who have done the program successfully, like at Fifth Street, have seen that happen before your eyes. So that's why we love the program so much. That's why the department really wants to expand the program, and we want to help them do that. So Strengthening Families is really it's actually a really basic program. The important part of Strengthening Families and why it's different than other like parenting programs or other stuff you'll see is that it involves the parents and the kids. So it's not just a parenting program. It's not just a program that's targeting the kids. It's bringing all of them together, learning the same skills, the same tools, the same language. And then that way they are practicing it together at the sessions with you. And then they go home every week and they practice those skills and everything at home, and then come back week after week and share with this community of people who are in the program who are also working on those same things, and building that over the span of 14 weeks. So it's kind of a long program too. When you like put in the calendar dates and you're like adding up like, oh, okay, well, we're going all the way to July. Okay. Like it's a really long program, but it's designed that way to really reinforce all of these skills that they're learning and making it a habit, building habits, so that they have that long-term effect in their family. Okay. So we say to start your new program to start with 8 to 9 families. They say that ideally you start with, a good number for a program would be 8 to 10 families, because you're going to lose some over the 14 weeks. And 8 is a really good number for like a lot of the really good parts of Strengthening Families is just like the interaction of the family. So when you have like a parent group and y'all are like in a circle, 8 to 10 is a good number for just discussion. It's not too small, it's not too big, it's still intimate that people feel like they can share. So that's what we're looking at is when you're recruiting for one cycle, which is 14 weeks, it's for 8 to 10 families. Just knowing that you're going to probably have a family or two drop off throughout that 14 weeks.
Can I interject?
Yeah, please do.
Don't get discouraged by the 14 weeks if you have not done this program. As you're going through the weeks, as the sessions go on and on, the people that have already done a cycle of strengthening families, they can attest to this. You don't feel like it's been 14 weeks. You start growing as a family. You start learning these different things about these other families, and you become a family yourself. And so when graduation comes, that 14th week, you're like, oh, well, this is it, and the closer it gets, they really do say like, oh, it's going to be ending soon. So that don't let the 14 weeks discourage you, because it does sound like a long time. When you start, like as Kat said, when you look at the calendar, when we put it on the calendar, it's like, gosh, that is long, but it does not feel that way.
Yeah, and we do have you have backups, like if you have a vacation planned or graduation or something like that, we structure in backups so that if you can't be there as a group leader every single one of those 14 weeks, that's okay. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so when I first started Strengthening Families training, this kind of didn't make sense to me. I couldn't quite picture it. So trying to get some kind of a visual, this is the best that we could do. But so the whole program that you're doing once a week for 14 weeks is 2 hours total. And so the 2 hours is the first 30 minutes are for everybody to eat a meal. That's a huge incentive for families to come, is that they get a free meal at least once a week. So the families are eating together as a family, having that at least a family meal where they can talk and use some of those skills for 30 minutes. And then the parents and the kids split up into different groups that are learning the same lessons. So the parents are in one room learning their lessons, and then the kids 6 to 11 are in a different room learning those same lessons. And then for the last 30 minutes, everybody comes together to learn family skills, which is pretty much sort of fleshing out all of those things they just learned and talked about. They're practicing those together in that last 30 minutes. So does that make sense? It's a 2 hour in the evening. And then this is how it's sort of broken down. Everybody's together, then they separate, and they come back together at the end to really reinforce those lessons that they just learned. Okay, so we are targeting ages 6 to 11, just because that's really the easiest age range for them to learn some of these skills for the long term. But what about kids that are out of that age range? You have families that have kids. They might have 7 kids that are, 0 to 15. So for kids under 6, everybody's coming. So we want the whole family to come. That's what's special about Strengthening Families. For the little kids, we do provide money for childcare. So each site would have 2 childcare providers that would provide childcare during when the sessions are going on. And then for the older kids, host sites have the option of having a group for older kids. That's either they could be learning the lessons that the other group is learning and the parents are learning, so that everybody's on the same page when they go home. Also, you could do something like a modified curriculum or a community service project. You could have the older kids helping with the younger kids, like in the childcare group or as kind of like a mentor type thing. What's great about Strengthening Families is that we can really tailor it quite a bit to each individual host site. So that's why we wanted to bring different host sites together today also, because everybody's doing it kind of differently. The curriculum stays the same. Everything that's in the manual, y'all have been through training, so most of y'all have your manuals. So that stays the same. But in terms of some of these kind of things about how you want to do it and what works best for your community, like if you only have 2 teens, it might work better for you to just have them help watch some of the younger kids, do a community service project or something. But you could also decide we've had a teen group that just had like 1 to 2 teens in it. And we provided a group leader for that class.
One thing that we want to stress is every host site you'll have your own thing. Of course, the curriculum stays the same. No 2 sites are going to be the same. It's just not going to happen. You don't have the same people there. So you put your own spin, your own creativity, you put your own vibe on your site. Don't strive to be like another site. Be your own site because you know your community better than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And what works at one place won't work at another.
Mm-hmm.
If you know your people, and as you get to know them better and better, you'll know what works for them and what works for that group.
Okay, so we have these different groups, which means that we have different group leaders. So when we're looking at your team, so each host site has a team that works together. At OCC, we're not putting on the program. You all are putting on the program as a team. So the team consists of a site coordinator, which helps do all the logistical background stuff, getting supplies, stuff like that. And then you have your group leaders. The group leaders are actually putting on the program, putting on that curriculum. So we have 2 group leaders for the adult group, 2 group leaders for the 6 to 11 group. And then if you want to have, like I said, we do provide for 1 teen leader if you decide to have a teen group or a 12 plus group, if you wanted to do that. And then also we train 2 backup group leaders. So like I said, if you have it's your 20th anniversary, you guys have a cruise planned, you don't have to cancel your cruise to be a group leader. We'll bring in the group backup group leader to help out with that. With some advance notice, we can schedule all that stuff out. That's why we do the calendar ahead of time. And then you also have your childcare providers as part of your team as well. So that's sort of your core team. The manual that y'all have, if y'all have been through it or you've done the program before, it's pretty easy to follow. It's really kind of designed. It's broken up like 5 minutes doing this, 10 minutes doing this. And it's designed that if you had to, like if you were a backup leader at the very last minute, someone's got the flu, you had to step in, you could. But we really prefer to have that preparation so it's more conversational. And that's another part too, where you know your community. And so rather than just reading the script as it's written, you can lend your own voice because that's what's going to be valuable to the kids and the parents and the families is your voice. Okay, so how is this where we talk? It's been a little while since we've been through this. So let's move on to the next slide because I think it's going to talk about it in a second. Yeah, here we go. So anybody can be a group leader. There's no special expertise. We've really sort of left it up to host sites to identify who's wants to be a group, who's going to be a group leader in their sites, because y'all know your people. Each group leader is, we do compensate for your time. I will say that this is really the best way to look at this program is as a ministry. I think that's why they thought that OCC would be a good fit for this and faith communities would be a good fit for this because it's about contributing to your community and making your community better. We do want to compensate you for your time and your work, but it's really it doesn't really work well to think about this as sort of a job, if that makes sense. Alicia, can you phrase this better than I am?
What I recommend when you're looking for group leaders, when you're putting your team together, ask for volunteers. You ask for volunteers, you have group people that show up. they really want to help. Then you tell them what they're going to be doing. They still want to do it. They really want to help. Then you let them know they will be compensated for their time. That's the way that I have seen best that you get people that are in it for real. That they have a passion for what we're doing. This is a ministry. This will not pay your bills. This is extra. This is extra. And so sometimes when people hear compensation, they jump in like, oh, I could get paid. No, this is ministry. This is ministry. And so we are healing communities. We are healing families. You get to see it right in front of your eyes. The people that have gone through a cycle or are currently in a cycle, they'll tell you that you get to see it right before your eyes. People are changing. So the money is not what's important here. And we want to make sure that we present it as what's important first. Then you get the compensation. That's the extra bonus for your time.
Thank you. Very well said. So that's my role, is that I'm the one who makes sure everybody gets paid. And so we do it's sort of like a package. So for the 14 weeks plus training, we do provide $2,000 for group leaders for that completion of the 14-week cycle. And those payments go out every 2 weeks. Again, we are a nonprofit organization, so we don't write checks. So it's healthy for our organization to go through accountants. So it has to go through sort of these layers of people before it gets into your bank account. And so sometimes, especially these days, people don't do stuff in a timely manner. So like this week, I noticed that the accountants they're supposed to be processing these payments every day. They took a couple of days to process payments this week. And that could just be because of COVID, or it could be because their kid got sick or whatever. So there's a lot of humans involved. So we have to allow a lot of grace. So that being said, it's ministry first and serving first, and then you'll just be really excited to get when the check finally comes. So just a little warning there. With the group leaders, a really important part of the whole session is that you go through that 2 hours with the families. So you eat, then you have your individual groups, you come together with your family skills. You send them home to practice all the great skills they just learned. And then the group leaders and the site coordinator get together to debrief for just about 20 minutes or so afterwards, after each session, to just talk through what went well, what didn't go well, and what do we need to look for next week. And then kind of communicate if, session A is about drugs and alcohol. One of the kids in the teen group was saying something, mentioned something about some drugs they had done or whatever. The teen group leader can share that with the parent group leader. And just so they're all kind of on the same page and communicating about that kind of stuff. So that's a really important piece of that as well. So the time commitment that you're looking at is that 2.5 to 3 hours a week that you're actually there in session. And these are usually held in the evenings to accommodate people who, school and work and all that. That we found that the best time is starting at 6,
Yes.
which gives people enough time to get off of work, through traffic, all that business, but home in time to do bedtime. Another recommendation that we have is that you want to do a little bit of prep each week. So what was happening at our first site that we ever did is that you have a co-leader, right? So if Faye is doing the parent group this week, and she's co-leading with Shay. So what was happening at our first site is that they were sort of taking each piece. So in your manual, you see there's 5 minutes doing this, there's 10 minutes doing this. And so like Faye would take the first 5 minutes and then Shay would take the next 10, and they'd kind of divide it up that way. Well, that took so much time preparation each week to try to coordinate all of that and go back and forth. And then it was hard to flow like in the middle of the session because you're switching off. So we learned that quickly, that the best way to do this is to alternate with your co-leader. So like session 1, Faye would be in charge of presenting the content on session 1. So she's going to prep that week and do all the, spend a couple hours that week preparing her session. And Shay would be the backup that week. So she's going to be there, but she's going to be doing things more like writing stuff on the whiteboard, helping with like passing stuff out, like with the children's group, obviously kind of hurting the children a little bit. Herding, H-E-R-D, not H-U-R-D. So we really found that kind of cuts back on like all the time preparation. So then session 2, Faye would be sort of that classroom management piece of it, and Shay would step forward, and that would be her week to do present the content that week. Does that make sense? So that way you're really only having to put in a lot of that time preparation every other week instead of every week. So that saves you time. Plus, I think it just flows a little bit better. I don't know if some of y'all group leaders that have done it could speak to that at all, but rather than having to go back and forth, okay, now it's your turn, your turn, your turn. You're the one who's presenting that week, and it's your domain. Okay, and then same with the family skills session. So family skills is at the end, that last half hour when everybody's coming back together to reinforce those skills. So that means you have 4 to 5 leaders. You have your parent leaders, your children's leaders, and maybe your teen leader. They're all coming together there at the end. Not all 4 or 5 of you need to be presenting that session. So you can split that up too. So that means that you're only responsible for presenting that content every 4 to 5 weeks, if that makes sense. Do you have any questions about that part of it? Does that kind of make sense? That was something we learned very early on. Okay, and then your site coordinator will be in charge of any supplies. If you notice on your manual before each session, at the top of the page, it says materials needed. And it will say like, your flip chart, your puppets, crayons, whatever. So all that's provided ahead of time. But you will notice in your manual, sometimes when you're reading on a specific lesson, it'll say, all right, for this specific lesson, you could do this activity number 1, or this activity number 2, or this activity number 3, or this activity number 4. So you get to choose which one of those things you want to do. And if there are any special supplies that you need for that, that'll be up to your site coordinator to get you those types of supplies.
Just to reiterate the group leaders, 2 group leaders. When I was a group leader, I was a backup group leader. I still came every week. I came every week because I wanted to see what was going to happen. The first session was so awesome. I was like, I don't want to miss. I want to see what's going to happen next. And so I did. I came every week, but I did not get paid. So that was strictly voluntary. So two group leaders with your adults, 2 group leaders with the 6 to 11. If you come every week and you're a third one, you will not get paid for that. That's voluntary. So I just want to make sure we understand, like, you don't just show up and everybody gets paid.
Yeah, we have a set budget, that we have to stick to.
I heard you say that for each of the different sites, that you do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, with me, kind of the newbie as far as with the training. And I did hear with Larry, he had mentioned it, so I'm glad to know that we can do it differently, because I know he was mentioning that you would have the group leader that would start the group, and then the code was within the group. And so perhaps that's just another style.
Yes.
Is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and you'll notice that Larry, so we have to have national trainers. So we have like Larry and Jeannie, and some other people who are sort of our national consultants that we have to contract with through our contract with the department. We can't do our own training, but obviously each site is different, and so some of the things that you would hear from Steph and Larry about that kind of more like logistical stuff, we do a little bit differently, or your site could choose to do a little bit differently. Yeah.
You'll find that when you team up with someone to be a leader, you may flow different. For instance, Charlesetta and Keith, they know each other. I mean, they know when to go in, when to come out, just when they're leading. And you're going to be like that with someone else. The more you teach with them, the more you lead with them, you'll get your flow. And then you'll know when to come in, when not to, and who's going to lead. And so it will be slightly different.
I have a question. This is just for like, even being a team leader or being, just say for instance, like since we're gonna be divided with kids and the parents, right, at a certain time. For the situations for the protocol, like what would it be if, like because of truthfully the way, family homes and a lot of things are going on right now, if there is something, that you may speak to a kid about,
Mhm.
and they tell you something is going on, like, what is the protocol to go behind that? Do you go and speak on the parent, if the kid happens to say, hey, you see, even with for yourself, and they speak on it, and you talk to them, they say, hey, this is happening. And will they give you a protocol, like who to speak to about, like, not to go to the parent, because we're gonna deal with you after that, and have a family setting and all that? Like, do they train us all as well to see about that? And the reason, because, I've just out here, not even, but just dealing with so much just from friends and some family.
Do you mean like a behavior problem that happened in the group, or like a serious? Okay.
If it's whatever, you don't have to even say, hey, if a kid tells you to speak on something, you don't want to go back and talk to the parent about it. Because then, they've already know, okay, like something that may be going on. Something that's gonna be harmful to them, and a kid may speak, especially from those ages.
Mhm.
And sometimes
That's
some
where
people are able
your-
to get through and not. So is there a way that, is there a protocol for that, so that we don't, give it to the parent and say, hey, your kid is feeling this way and this and that way, and they're not supposed to be, they're probably not supposed to say it.
Okay, so this is one reason why your debrief is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you debrief your session with your leaders, your site coordinator will be there also.
Yeah.
That's the information that you need to give in the debrief, so that your site coordinator knows what to do
So
next.
that information you do not take to the other side. Okay, that's what I was
You
wondering,
take
like,
debrief.
how do you?
In your debrief with your leaders, that's when you would give that information, and your site coordinator will take it from there. There's nothing else that you as a leader
Exactly.
needs to do or can do.
Right,
Your site coordinator takes it from there.
exactly.
Yes.
During the debriefing, the site coordinators, like you said, they run their own sites. Is there some protocol at the top that each site coordinator know they have to adhere to? Or do we do it individually? Is there something in place that say when you identify these things in these particular sites, after the debriefing, this is where we all take this information?
Yes.
Or do you do it individually? Something written down for the program itself? Is there some kind of survey, some kind of measure device in place?
We would just follow Oklahoma state law.
Right.
What I'm saying is that written down so people don't know, because one debriefing may be entirely different than another debriefing.
Well, and that's one reason why we're having this orientation.
Yes.
And that's one reason why we have, we encourage people to come to the orientation and watch.
Right.
Because when you know that your site coordinator will take care of it, and then we take the different steps to report or do what needs to be done next.
She said something about Oklahoma State law. Do we have a copy of the Oklahoma State law?
You can get it online.
Yeah, it's online.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's up to your site. That's why y'all don't have to have that specific knowledge. That's why when you pass on to your site coordinator in the debrief, the site coordinator can be the one who has that specific knowledge and knows what to do next.
You know, I just want to know where that knowledge is. Is there a central
You even have a
person where they go with that knowledge? One may have a knowledge and do something probably different than another site coordinator with the same knowledge. I'm just saying, is there
After you've done your part, then they just saying that that's it for you. We don't need to know, we don't need to know like what they're, we don't get paid like that. We not.
And just so you know, the site coordinator, any site coordinator reports to me. And so therefore, they come to me, I go to who I need to go to, and then we go from there. So it won't be where you have a site coordinator that doesn't have the same information and doesn't have access to me. Is that what you were asking? Oh, okay.
And the law is the law, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
where. And so it doesn't matter which site that you're at.
Right.
The law is still the same, it doesn't change. And so with that being the case, once you have done the protocol that I'm hearing here, then you, because most, if it goes further, you might be called as a witness. And
Right.
So be aware of that as well.
Right.
But, okay, what I'm understanding, but, if something like someone's been a child benefit, apparently you know it, got an attitude up here.
Mhm.
So would you bring that out in the group, final meeting, or could you go one-on-one with the site coordinator and tell what the child told you?
You can.
Instead of putting it out out there for everybody else to hear,
If
because some people don't have closed mouth.
I get that. And so one of the things that we make very clear with our leaders is this is a safe space for our families.
Yeah.
So it is not for us, any of us as leaders, to take some information and share it with the world. It's not. This is a safe place. And as they get closer and closer to us in these 14 weeks, they trust us.
Right.
They trust us. And to answer your question, yes, it is okay for you to go to your site coordinator and say, this is the information I want to give you, but I didn't want to share it in the debrief. That is perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine.
In one of our situations, we had the parent just say it. She said, I used to beat my kids all the time. She just said it in the circle. And since I've been coming, I don't beat them anymore.
We've had that testimony too, absolutely. You hear that. You hear that more than once.
And you can, and with words can be different, the terminology of words. Whereas one say beat, one may say spank. So you have to be careful, that's a thin line as well with that as well. Oklahoma state law does not say that you cannot spank your children. You cannot abuse and leave webs and all, so you have to know that part of the law as well. I worked in law enforcement, so that's kind of how.
Gotcha.
All
Okay.
questions answered there.
Okay. So this is some of the area so the curriculum stays the same, the program's done as it's designed, because that's how they know all those outcomes come out of the program, is because it's done the same way in terms of the curriculum. But these are some areas that host sites can kind of tweak it to their own community. So what day of the week or time that you want to do your session, although again, we do have some recommendations at this point based on lessons learned. And then how to handle your dinner. So every session you're going to start out with a meal. And so you can figure out as a church or as a community or as a team how y'all want to do that. Again, every host site's totally different. Some of them have like somebody at the church who fixes the food. Some of them have their own like catering business. At one site, Alicia is handling that as a site coordinator. So they do pizza, they do Raising Cane's.
I don't mind going to get food. I will just as a note, I will say this is not profitable for caterers.
Mm-hmm.
It is not profitable for catering.
Unless they want to volunteer.
But unless they want to volunteer, I make that very clear. This is not profitable for caterers unless they want to volunteer or they just want the experience.
Ministry minded.
Yeah,
Ministry
ministry
minded.
minded.
Mhm.
So, because once they get their budget, there's nothing left after food. There's nothing left. So, Raising Cane's, I've done Tez Wings, I've done, they recommend on the training, all the time that you have organizations within the church make the meal, and you just provide that budget to the church. There are many ways that it can be done. But again, I say, it is not profitable for caterers.
Yeah, so I say that kind of the way to look at it is that the church is responsible for finding the volunteer or someone who will actually prepare the food, and then they usually use that money towards the actual like groceries. I will say there was some talk about like partnering with the health department or with like a local grocery store or something like that to get some healthy food provided, to get like vegetables or other produce, stuff like that. So there's just a million different ways to do it. One site just had a couple of volunteers that put it together, a really simple meal, and they just got it from Sam's. Like it could have just like hot dogs, chips, juice boxes for the kids, and then a big tub of potato salad. You know, doesn't have to be fancy or elaborate at all. Everybody does it different, but that's kind of up to each site to decide. Just communicating with the site coordinator about that. And then this is an incentive-based program. So if you look at the curriculum, it's about rewards, right? Like it's about teaching parents to reward behaviors they want to see from their kids, those positive behaviors. And so that's built into the program itself. So when we see behaviors that we want to see, positive behaviors from the participants in our Strength and Families program, we give them rewards. So one of the rewards that we do is the meal. One of it is transportation, so like gas cards or Uber cards to help get them there, because we know transportation is a huge barrier. And then other ones are really kind of up to the host sites, and host sites do them really differently. So some of them will do, like there will be like a raffle prize at the very end at graduation. So you could do raffle tickets each week, like if they're on time, if that's something that you want to try to incentivize. If they're on time, they get raffle ticket. And that goes into the box. And then at the very end of the program, they can be pulled out for like an air fryer. I think is what we have going right now. Or we've had a crock pot. We had like a popcorn machine, TV, done different things. And then like in-session incentives. So like you're wanting participation and sharing and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think at Fifth Street, for example, they got a bunch of $5 or $10 Walmart gift cards. And then anytime, like during a session, like a parent session, for example, a parent shared, they got a gift card. Like right there, it's immediate. Thank you for sharing. Some of them have done like a larger gift card, like a $20 gift card that they did each parent session and each child session. They just gave out one to somebody who did a good job that week or whatever, and then kind of made sure that it was being, each kid got something or each parent got something by the end of the cycle. Kind of divided up that way. We also, something that's very successful is a treasure box. So there'll be a treasure box full of just like little toys or goodies or whatever. And the kids, the child's group leader, if one of the kids did a really good job or was sweet or pulled out a chair for somebody or whatever in a nice way, they got to go, okay, you can pick something out of the treasure box. Christy?
Is there, a budget in that for that site, or is it depending on what the site wants to spend, like the church wants to, how's that done?
So it's a set budget, and then the
Okay, for
site
the
gets to
citizen.
decide what to do with that.
Okay.
So if they want to do any of those things that I just mentioned, what are some other examples, Alicia?
For teens, I've done gift cards. They seem to like the gift cards. They think they're too old for the treasure chest. Until they see something like a sibling is playing with them. But I do a lot of the gift cards, $5 Sonic cards, $10 Cane's cards. If a place has a dollar menu, I do $5. If they don't, then I'll do 10. But those type of things. Also, journals for teens. Just teens are hard to buy for. I mean, I think we all know that. So they're really happy with gift cards. You can do Walmart. You can do, I mean, whatever kind of gift cards you want. In the treasure chest, I normally do the poppets, those fidget things. Kids love those things. I mean, I like bubble wrap, so I can't. But that's just something to keep their hands busy. Action figures. The girls like the little sunglasses. Just nail polish. Dollar store stuff, $5 and below. The back of Ross is one of my favorite places. So that's where all the little toys and so that's normally where I get that stuff. And you have to be able to stretch it because, as we just said, you have a budget. So for 14 weeks, that needs to be stretched. So with those type things, you can stretch that budget.
Yeah. So there's also halfway treats. So like at session 7, to reward you're halfway done with the program, we do a little something extra, like a board game or something like that, where it's like an activity for the family can do together. And then you have completion incentives. So families that have completed 10 out of the we tell them 12 out of the 14 sessions, but for our purposes, it's actually 10 out of 14.
In the grace period.
If they've completed the program, they get $75 at the end of the program at graduation. And then also part of the incentive is graduation itself. It has its own budget. Graduation's a huge deal. We want to celebrate this accomplishment. They've been coming week after week for this is like months. You know, it's a big commitment to get all your kids, get them in, it's a big deal, and we want to make it a huge deal for them. So, and that's one that's really, really tailored. Tell them what Intune's doing for their graduation.
So Intune is we're going to do outside. So we're thinking Wheeler Park. Go to Wheeler Park and have the food delivered there. Set up in the background so they can take pictures. And then we'll acknowledge everyone, hand out their certificates, and it's out of the box. We're out of the building that we've normally been in. We're doing something totally different and adding some extras in there with their gifts and everything. And then the kids can just run around, get tired, and go home and go sleep. Right? That's always my goal when there's children around. What can we do to tire them out? Divine Wisdom also has a great idea. And by the way, we normally ask the graduates, the families, what they want to do. So the idea that they had, and everybody loved it, at Divine Wisdom was a Hawaiian themed skate party.
Wow.
So that's what they want to do. And so we'll have pizza, we'll decorate, we'll take pictures, we'll acknowledge the family. And that's a big deal. And the kids are having fun. And what are they going to do when they finish? They're tired. They're tired. And so, and that's my goal. When they're children, when they're small children, let's get them tired. So you can, just be creative, make it your own. Do whatever. Let your participants come up with it, and then come up with a collective, put it all together, and let's have a big thing, a big to do.
Mm-hmm. Like Tabitha and Fifth finished right before Christmas. So like Tabitha kind of had like a kind of a Christmas party. So they used some of their funds to buy like Christmas gifts for the kids. The church was decorated gorgeous for Christmas. They had like a speaker, couple, the pastor spoke, and then Pastor Gaddis also spoke some inspirational words. They had just something to make it really special. It doesn't have to be super elaborate or anything like that, but just
They did pictures.
and pictures. They had a photographer on site who took the portraits of the families and then was able to print them right there so they could take them home.
And I'm just curious, if you guys can remember, how many at the end graduation between the two, how many families were?
At Fifth Street, correct me if I'm wrong, Chauncey, I think we started out, okay, let me start over. By week 3, we had 9. And then we ended up with 7, actually completing the entire program.
That's
So-
very good.
Yeah.
So, and Tabitha can attest to this, if you don't have, a lot of families, week 1 and week 2, don't panic. Keep calling them, tell them, come on, we need you, come on, y'all need this, and recruit, keep recruiting, because people will fall out. And how wonderful would it be to have a waiting list for strengthening families?
I was gonna ask that even, to begin to recruit for our next session, would you say 6 weeks out to start? Well, like, we're in April, going to go to 9. Currently now progressively trying to recruit for the next session to where you're not at that end trying to see what we're going to be doing. Another thing that I wanted to ask, and this is just me needing to know, is that I know that they said that some of the families are, and I know that you all are through the Oklahoma Mental Health and Substance Abuse, and that some of the families are mandated by the court. Are we through this particular, the Oklahoma churches?
Conference of Churches.
Conference of Churches, are we working with the Oklahoma Mental Health and Substance Abuse to get these families, or is that something that our site, we chose to go out and to say, we would like to know if you have any families in the area that perhaps need this service? Would we be the one, or would it be Oklahoma Conference of Church, since you are the one who have the partnership apparently with? So just curious.
We're just trying to get that prevention side of it. So we're not specifically targeting people who are in the court system.
Okay.
I will say that the statistics on strengthening families and getting kids back are amazing. It's like if the parent has a reunification plan, their treatment plan, strengthening families is part of that, they're reunified with their kids like twice as fast or twice as often. It's something really amazing. And so we don't have those, we're not seeking those, but we have had some people who are involved in the child welfare system in the program just because they went to the church. That sometimes, and I think right now we have some parents that are going through the program, the kids are not in their custody. So the kids are not actually there, but the parents are there learning the skills, going through the program, and then they can take that to their DHS worker to help with their situation.
That does work with their situation. Each site recruits their own.
And that's what my concern is, how do we recruit?
So I recruit wherever I go. If you're a talker, I recruit wherever I go. If I'm at the dumpster and I see a family, because I'm always talking to little kids, that's smaller children. And so I recruit Walmart, anywhere I would talk to somebody, do strengthening family, if I see it.
Can we get cards for
Yes,
when
you
we're
will.
out? Okay.
Yes, you will. I have ordered cards.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you will. So everyone will have cards that you can just give out. I'll make those available for everyone. But I recruit everywhere. I have called Sunbeam, see if they can hook me up with What is it? Head Starts with their Head Start programs. I have also contacted Latino communities. I have also contacted just anyone that has shelters, that have families that can come. And mostly it's start in your church. Start inside the church and then come out. Unless you know people, already know people who need to come in. So, but I recruit everywhere.
And that's good information to know, because again, that with me just now getting started, well, not really understanding how can we, and so this is very informative for me.
Yep, and it works really well because we have so many different sites going. And so let's say that Fifth Street's going to do Tuesday nights. Well, if Tuesday at 6 o'clock doesn't work for a family, we can refer them to Divine Wisdom that's doing it on Thursdays. So, and then people also come through our website. So there's a form on our website, and I think that's on the card, I believe.
That's what
People can fill out a form, and then we get that, and then we can figure out with the family where's the best location for you based on where they live, what's their schedule, that kind of thing. So, and we're kind of building up, a list of families that are looking for a site. So it'll start in your church. It'll start with y'all recruiting, but then hopefully we can kind of start sharing around the network as well.
I recently got a contact with a DHS worker, and so I'll be trying to get some contacts with having constant contacts with DHS, so that if they have people that need parenting classes and those types of things.
Even contacting schools, because now all schools have counselors in the schools.
I will.
And
I am
so-
on my way into school.
Okay.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm working on it. And I have to do background check and everything to be in the schools, but that is also one of my goals, is to get into Oklahoma City schools so that we can pass out, because I have to do all the background just to get in there. So,
Question, whenever you are out recruiting,
mhm.
you see like a family mother and kids, and that's when you go talk to them? Just anyone you see?
Just anybody.
And so what if they say yes, are we taking their information, or they're supposed to go somewhere like online and do something? How are we supposed to do
On that card will be the website, and they can just go onto the website and sign up
Okay.
and register on the website. I personally give out my number, but that's just me. Anybody. People ask me all the time when I'm buying incentives, because I have so many most of the time, what are you getting this for? Or the food, what are you getting this for? Perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
Strengthening families. And this, do you have children? And the last lady at Sam's Club was like, well, yeah, I have children. How old are they? Here's my number. Give me a call and I'll send you this information, or whatever the case may be. The more when you get into the cycle, the further you go in the cycle, the more you will see people that need strength in their family. It's just like automatic. You just automatically like, ooh, they need strength in their family. She yelled at the kids. And I mean, you just see it. And it's not just families with children. You see, I mean, just everyday working adults. You like, yeah, I can use this on you too. We've had people that said, this worked better on my husband than it does the kids. So, I mean, it works all the way around. And that's one thing that I love about strengthening families. It is everyone in the household has to be accountable. It holds everyone accountable, not just the parents. Everybody has to be accountable.
So we take, it's just caregiver. So it could be the parents, it could be grandparents, it could be any kind of caregiver, primary caregiver for these kids can be involved in the program. We can add new families after up to session 3. And then, but even after that, like if dad didn't want to come, So mom and the kids are coming. But then they come home every week and they're like, they got all their fun stuff that they're doing and they're talking about it and they're doing family meetings or whatever. And dad's like starting to see that what's going on here and getting curious. Dad can still join at any time.
Oh.
Or grandma.
Auntie, anybody.
We've had people where like grandma had custody of the little girl, but mom just eventually started coming as well, even though she didn't have custody of the little girl. And then we've also had like co-parents.
Yes.
So it's technically two different households. The parents are not together anymore, but they made a commitment to parent their child or their children, so they come together. So that's been really, really valuable.
We have a grandmother right now in the site has custody of 6. Her daughter passed away and she now has custody of her daughter's 6 children. And so I can having the time, this is not therapy, but it's very therapeutic. So having that time to talk these things out and bounce these ideas off of each other is very, very therapeutic for a lot of people.
Okay, well, hopefully you all have gotten this message by now. Okay, so this is sort of a breakdown of kind of what OCC provides for host sites. So really the church or the community organization is really providing the people. So the group leaders, your childcare providers, your team, your core team that's putting the program on. And then OCC provides all the support to help you do that program. So we're kind of the behind the scenes and providing that financial, but also program guidance. Alicia's quickly become an expert in this program and has really, really, as you can see, amazing suggestions and ideas to help everything go smoothly. We also have, we can have calls with Larry or Jeannie, who are those national consultants. Sometimes when there's questions we can't answer, they will provide that extra. They have a million suggestions that are really helpful. They also, like for session 8, which is about drugs and alcohol, that can be kind of a tricky session for group leaders and they're a little nervous about it. It's actually, the session is more about like values, not so much about the drugs and alcohol. It's really about establishing values, communicating values for the family. But your team can get on a call with Jeannie or Larry and they'll kind of walk you through that, for example. So we're just here to kind of try to make this go smoothly and give you what you need so that you can put on this program in your community and make that impact. So we do pay for the group leaders, like Alicia clarified, 2 adult leaders, 2 children leaders. And then if there's an extra person there, that is voluntary. The money for the dinners, the childcare providers, the incentives, including gas cards. We did ask for, in this next contract period, an increase for gas cards because gas, you know how that's going. We're all feeling that. And then money for graduation as well. And then providing that site coordinator, which takes care of all of those logistical details, like arranging the schedules and the handouts and the supplies and all that kind of stuff. And then we provide all the supplies and handouts as well. So each, you guys have your manuals, and then you see that each week the parents get their handouts, the children get their handouts, making sure you have all that kind of stuff that you need to put on the program. Okay. Okay, so we already talked about recruitment. So those can really come from anywhere. Childcare providers, most churches have childcare providers that y'all already use, and so we just pay them. I think that at some sites, we've just sort of used childcare providers that have been at other sites. If you don't have somebody within your organization, and sometimes you don't have any kids, little kids, but we still pay for the providers to be there. The thing with strengthening families is that week to week, you don't know how many families are going to show up. Your site coordinator will make weekly calls to each of the families to ask, check in with them. How's the home practice going? Identify any barriers. Is their car broken down that week? Do they need an Uber card? What do we need to do to get them? Yeah, dietary issues. What do we need to do to get them at the session that night? But sometimes life happens. You don't know how many families are going to show up. So you don't know if you're going to have 8 kids in your childcare that are under 5 and under or none. But we do provide for those childcare providers anyways, just to be there just in case. And then really the sites have been identifying group leaders because you all know who the people are in your community that would have a passion for this, would be great for this, and who would have a heart for it. Mhm.
Can you explain that? I don't know where I was in my brain when I was started, but the tiers as far as the site, the groups, and how does that fall, or does it fall in? I understand what goes where.
Like as far as titles,
Yes.
site, you have the site coordinator, then you have your leaders and your families and
That's.
Mhm.
Yeah, you said it was like coordinator.
I'm sorry, site coordinator.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. That's what I got.
On your first sites, if you're in in your first cycle, I would be your site coordinator.
Yeah, it is helpful, especially at a new site where everybody's brand new, to have, we kind of call them the point person. So like Charles Zetta was that at 5th Street, Rhonda Mitchell was at Tabitha, sort of somebody who's driving the program at that, and Kelly was that at Divine Wisdom as well. So somebody who's kind of the main point of contact for the site coordinator to make some of those decisions for the team if needed, and who's really sort of organizing everybody within the organization, if that makes sense. And then at this point now, we have a lot of trained group leaders. And so if you are looking to fill your team of 6 or however many are on your team, we can probably fill those gaps for you. So if there's somebody who you have one missing person, you can't find another person in your church to be that 6th member of your team, we can find a leader if you're amenable to that to fill in that role. And then with volunteers, this really varies by site, but we just kind of ask for churches to provide 1 to 2 volunteers just to help out with kind of whatever happens. It could be food stuff. Obviously with COVID, serving food is kind of more of an ordeal than probably in the before times. Cleanup, setup, it's sometimes if it's in the sanctuary, you got to move all the chairs to have it be more like a U shape so that it's not like, it's more conducive to sharing if it's in a circle or a U shape, rather than the group leaders just talking at them. And then things like if there is a transportation issue and your church has a shuttle and there's a guy who loves to drive the shuttle around, you could go, that he could get a volunteer to go pick up a family that doesn't have a car but lives nearby maybe. Tabitha had volunteers. They escorted people to their cars after the program, which was really sweet. Because we did in the winter, so it was dark when the program got out. So we do just ask for a couple of volunteers. People are interested in the program, but maybe don't want to make the time commitment to be a group leader, but could help out in some other way. Oh, COVID still with us. So we actually can do this. When we were planning on starting this program, we were going to do it on Zoom. And then vaccinations rolled out, so we ended up being able to do it in person. But you can do it on Zoom. In that case, we would provide devices for all the families. Like each participant, each kid, each parent has to have their own device. So we would provide those as well as like a hotspot for internet. So that's an option. We haven't done it yet. Everybody opts to do it in person. Obviously, it's hard, but it has been done for like 2 years now. They've been doing it on Zoom. But most sites have been doing okay with having like masking, air ventilation, distancing. For meals is the only time that they didn't have their masks on. So each family had a table, which is what you're supposed to be doing anyways. Like the dinner is supposed to be a time for the family to be talking. It's not really a time for them to be like mingling with other families or for the kids to go with their friends or whatever. It's really a time for the family. So each family has a table. And so that kind of helps a little bit, like in considerations with serving food. What's that?
The families also have a discussion question. So as they're sitting there, they can have a discussion question that you provide so that they have something specific to discuss. Also, in this past training, in the training that Ms. Ruth was in, another good thing is that we as leaders disperse and sit with the families, learn something about your families, talk to your families, see what they need, because we all know everybody is not going to come in. Every family is not going to come in and be totally open about what their problems are, what issues are, what they may need to get there from week to week. So it's our job as leaders to make it feel safe so that we can come in and say, they feel okay coming in and saying, I need this, or I don't have gas to get here next week, or whatever the case may be. My car broke down. And so we speaking with them while they're eating in that little moment, in that 30 minutes, can help a lot.
Can I add to that, from the training, and it's also building relationships with the people that we're working with. And it was also said, Larry was the person that I trained with, is that to change up families each week to where you're not just sitting with the one.
Mm-hmm.
So you're building relationships with each of the families that you're working with.
Yeah, and this program is really relationship based. So when you're talking about having to get families to come week after week, the reason that they come, yes, we do provide incentives, but really they've kind of studied this and show that families do start to come because of the incentives. And so that's why it's really important for your whole team to know what your incentives are, to start out real strong with what those incentives are, to keep them coming to week 2, week 3. But after about like week 4 or 5, the families will come back because of the relationships. And that's the relationships with you as group leaders, and it's relationships with each other. Because then they start to build up that camaraderie as a group with the kids, and then also the parents. And then just being around other families who want positive change for families. That's not always something that our society
Larry says
focuses on,
in training, if you can get the attention of the children will drag their parents back.
That's right.
And that is
That's
so
true.
true.
Yeah.
If your treasure chest looks good, if you just have those toys just falling out of the treasure chest, they want to come back, and they will tell their parents, we gotta come back, we gotta go. We have parents that are dragging in, but their kids are like, what's going on? So we're back. So if you get the attention of the children, the parents will come. They will follow. So.
Okay, well, this is just a little bit about OCC. We want y'all to feel like you can reach out to any of us at any time with any questions. Your main point of contact is Alicia, of course.
Alicia with the edge.
When she asked me for it, I was like, I'm official.
And then there's me. If you have any questions about getting paid or any of that kind of stuff, I get plenty of those messages, believe me. You can reach out to me for any of that kind of stuff. And then our director, Reverend Dr. Shannon Fleck, today is the first day of her sabbatical.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So she's out for 3 months. She's done. So we'll just skip over her for a second. Maybe she'll be back like Labor Day. So probably for those of y'all that are doing fall sessions, she'll probably be back by then. And normally she'd be here to welcome you all. And then our director of programs is Michael Eric Owens. OCC does a lot of different things. We do opioid and stimulant outreach. That's a program that Michael runs. We have a big interfaith presence, activities that we do. We do all kinds of stuff. So strengthening families is one piece of that, of what we do, but an important piece. So this is kind of just wanted to let you know that we're all available to you all as a resource, anything that you need. I think you have Alicia's contact info, and then she can pass on my contact info if you need my email, or it's on our website too. Sure, yeah, we can send this out. Okay, so we have a little bit of time left. Is there anything, especially from sites that have already either questions that y'all have, or from those of y'all that are already doing the program or have done the program, that you want to throw out? Please, let's hear it.
I can say something. One of the things that helped with our reminded the adults history was it was me and my husband. So we could go back and forth. Sometimes we just sort of got it together. And when I would review the material, I would think of different things that were successes within our family and failures within our family. And I'd make a little note on there. So when we were talking about it, I'd talk about where we messed up big time. And, and doing that really made them feel comfortable.
Right.
And when you do that, they'll feel comfortable. They'll start talking. Towards the end, our participants started telling each other, well, you got to start doing this. And they were telling them the things that we weren't having to say, because then they were doing it. But we really did. We told a lot of failures, and we know in our community, we're used to spanking kids. And so we didn't sit and try to act like we never spanked our kids, but we told them sometimes what it caused when you spank the kids. You see what I'm saying? So it wasn't that we were going, no, you don't. It was like, well, but this relationship might have been damaged. And so it gave them a reason to say, well, let me think about trying to do something. And we did see that they started going, you know what? This has been better doing it this way.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's a great point, because something that I really love about strengthening families is that, especially if you're kind of nervous about being a group leader, because as a group leader with strengthening families, it's not like you have all the answers and you're there to teach them how to be a better parent. And that it's not that dynamic. It's really about being part of this. You're kind of on the same. Yes. Yeah. And it's like, so they encourage group leaders to, you as a group leader are going through the program the same as your participants are. And you hear that from group leaders all the time, that they have their own change within their own family because they were following the stuff with the program. And so that's part of what Strengthening Families is designed to do, is that's more of a peer relationship rather than like, that's why they want you to have it be in a circle or in a U. It's not so much like, as a group leader, you're going to stand up here and tell them what to do. You're also sharing your journey, so like if there's some week where, they're supposed to go home and do family meetings. And so as a group leader, you're supposed to be going home and doing family meetings too. And so like if one week y'all got busy, you didn't do your family meetings, then you're honest about that week and say, when y'all are doing your check-in to see how did home practice go, you can say, you know what, this week at my house, it didn't happen because of this or that or whatever, and be honest about it. And that's part of the program, which is really cool.
It is.
I'm sorry, I got a question. Since if it's your first time, like this is my first time, coming, I was told about this, okay, now that, you know, you said everything we've gone through, okay, what is the next step if you're interested in doing this? Like, what is the next step to get into, to even see, you know, to go about, what are your requirements for that? Or what is it, that's the next step? After doing this orientation, after doing what we're doing now, if you're really interested in doing it and getting on it, what is the actual next step from this?
So everybody has to go through training. Our next training will be in August. I think this week we're going to set the dates for those. So we're hoping to do an in-person. I hope so, because the Zoom training is really, it's fine. It's great. But we like in person. So that'll be in August. And then we're hoping that quite a few programs are going to be starting like in September, October. Because you're thinking it's like 3 months-ish. And so like if you want to wrap up before like Christmas, you want to start in September.
Right.
Is how that would work out. So you're kind of thinking about, you know, what's your time frame for your host site. Everybody, the whole team, everybody needs to be trained. All your group leaders, childcare providers don't have to be trained, but all your group leaders and your site coordinator would be trained in the program through Larry or Jeannie or national people. And then it's really about the host site accepting this commitment and going through that process. If there's been some commitment shown that, you know, coming to orientation, be going through training or whatever, that this is something that y'all are willing to take on, because I mean, some of the people here can attest, this is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work getting started. It is.
But it's worth it.
It is. It's very worth it.
I was listening to her say she went through a training with Larry. When is that? Who is that?
That is.
What is that?
Larry and Jeannie are the national consultants, and they are the ones that do the training. So she was saying we'll have a training in August. Larry will probably do our training in August.
Yep.
How long is the training, and is there an MOU per site?
Per site, yes. So we have an agreement with the churches, and then we have an agreement with each group leader as well. So that kind of lays out like what's our commitment, what's their commitment. And then the training is 2 days. So depending on how, and you'll say what you prefer, because we actually haven't really landed on what works best. I think some people have done it during the workday, and we do pay as part of your payment is that you're paid for training. But sometimes if you're working full time, it's hard to be away from work for 2 days. So what we've done when we've organized the trainings is that we did like a Friday afternoon, noon, evening, and then Saturday day, which is real hard when the weather's nice. But August, it'll be hot. It's fine.
So is it like 4 hours, 8 hours, when you say 2 days? You have to pay.
So it's like 4:30.
12
4
hours
to 8.
total.
Yeah, it's like
12 hours training.
Mhm.
So we split it
And they
up.
do give you CUs.
So I know that I've already, you know, someone has already been through training, but I would like to hear Larry in person. Can we come in August? I mean, I know we've already been paid for it, but just to get that experience in
I don't
person.
see why
Because we
that
did
would be a
on
problem.
Zoom.
I don't see why that would be a
Yeah, I think that would be okay, because I think we're limited with Zoom because of the platform, but I think in person we can pack them in. So yeah.
It has been a while.
Tell me this. Okay, I didn't get on this training. Is this called considered training?
This is considered orientation. Training will be with the national consultant.
Okay, so you're not qualified to go through that training?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things too, we stumbled into is everyone really doesn't have to have kids to be a good trainer.
That's true.
Especially when they're dealing with the kids. We fell into having a young lady who had just graduated from college and she wanted to do it, and they loved her. And she had no kids. So when you're thinking about who I should get, because initially we had, these probably should be the requirements, and God just knocked that all out. And we have found that not having kids is just as good. They still have experience. So you think about that when you're looking for people too.
Can I also add, probably a plus, because I was a grandmother who raised grandchildren from 2, they were 1 and 2, and I got them, they're grown now. But anyway, we have grandparents just like the one you mentioned, and that it's a different audience, it's a different even set of the way that we raised our children. And as I said, I raised my children, I was spanked, I raised my children spanked, then with my grandchildren so now it's a different way in which and sometimes we have to untrain our way of doing things. And sometimes as older people, we're set in our ways for doing certain things. We can identify when you are taking on children and your time, you may not have asked for these children. So you're doing it because of the heart, but again, so you can relate to them and to understand sometimes the pressure that they are feeling and to help them to ease that pressure. So I would say, I heard you say about the college students, but even as grandparents who have lived those layers.
Sure.
It's good to have different perspectives. I also encourage a male presence. As much male presence as you can. Families need to see that. Our families need to see that. Other than that.
Okay, well, thank you all. As you can see, we pulled out the little chocolate incentives for you all. You all are a product of our experiment, and it works. So this is the kind of thing, like having some candy out for your probably the parents. Please sign in up here if you didn't get a chance to sign
If you
in.
did not sign in, please sign in and also put your email address. I can email you information. Don't hesitate to call